Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Annex 3 of the recently signed Iran nuclear agreement calls for the participating countries to work with Iran to, quote, strengthen Iran's ability to protect against and respond to nuclear security threats, including sabotage, as well as to enable effective and sustainable nuclear security and physical protection systems, close quote. Secretary Clapper, do you read this portion of the Iran nuclear agreement, the Annex, to include cyber threats, meaning that the P5+1 countries who are part of this agreement will be expected, will be deemed to have an obligation under the agreement to assist Iran in developing systems to prevent other countries from using cyber capabilities to acquire information about or to disrupt the operations of Iran's nuclear capabilities, Iran's nuclear programs?
Well, in this environment, I will say that I trust that this is not going to prevent us from gleaning intelligence from our traditional sources in the interest of verifying the agreement, which will be principally monitored by international organization IAEA. So I'm not aware of any strictures on our ability to collect on their behavior and their compliance.
But why would we want to give Iran the ability to defend against cyber weapons that we or perhaps some of our allies might one day want to use against Iran?
Well, sir, in this open environment, there are some aspects here that I can't discuss. Happy to talk with you privately or in a classified environment about that.
Okay. Okay, but you're not disputing the fact that the agreement says that we would have to.
No.
Okay. Now, can you tell me in this environment what specific technical assistance we'll be offering Iran in this portion of the agreement?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I have to have that researched. I don't know exactly what's in mind there.
Now, would any of these capabilities, once acquired by Iran, prevent or inhibit the United States or any of our allies, any other enemy of Iran, from using any cyber measure against Iranian nuclear facilities?
Again, I'm reluctant to discuss that in this setting. Were
you consulted by U.S. negotiators during the nuclear negotiations in connection with this portion of the agreement?
Well, the intelligence community was deeply involved throughout the negotiations.
Can you describe the nature of any consultation you had with them as to this portion of Annex 3?
With the Iranians?
Yes.
No, I did not engage with the Iranians on that.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you can describe your discussions with U.S. negotiators as they came to you and consulted with you on the implications of this portion of Annex 3.
I didn't actually. My lead for this was Norm Rule, who is known to many of you on this committee, National Intelligence Manager for Iran, and he was the direct participant. And I don't want to speak for him as to the extent to which he was involved or consulted on that provision. I'd have to ask him.
Okay, but you would have been aware of consultation going on. I'm sure he came to you and said, "Look, this is going to impact our ability, the ability of the United States to do what we need to do with respect to Iran."
Again, sir, I would rather discuss what the potential response of ours could be in a closed setting.
Okay. Secretary Work, how is the Department working to ensure that the hardware and software on some of these major programs that we're developing to future contingencies and technological advances, so they can continue to address emerging cyber threats well into the future without major overhauls of the entire system?
Senator, as I said, we are now putting into our KPPs, our key performance parameters, on any new systems, specific cyber hardening requirements, much like during the Cold War when we had EMP requirements for many of our systems. The problem that we face is that many of the old systems that are still in service were not built to respond to the cyber threats that we see today. So we're having to go back through all of those older systems, determine which ones are most vulnerable, prioritize them, and make fixes. It also goes back to Senator Donnelly's question on the trusted foundry. We're trying to determine what is the best way to assure that we have reliable and trusted microelectronics.
Okay. Thank you. I see my time's expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr.